Well, as usual, things are not necessarily in context. So, one of the contexts that you see left out quite often is that when he said, "Why can't we get more people from Norway?" Sometimes they mention it, but usually they don't. That he had just got done meeting with the Prime Minister of Norway, and he had been talking about Norway, 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 probably for an hour and a half that day. And so, when he was trying to come up with the name of a country that was prosperous, he said Norway. So if you leave that context out, it changes it a lot. The other context you probably need to put on this is that the damage that the president created, and by the way, I count his use of the word shithole in a way that could be, got out to the public, was clearly just a mistake. And as mistakes go, it was sort of a 10 out of 10. It's about as high as you can get on the offensive mistake level. So I don't defend it in any way. But if you put it in context, what he said was in a room with no cameras and no recording. So it was a bad thing to say, but in the context of the room, everybody in the room understood it to be his usual colorful language, talking about the economic situation of those countries, because the whole reason they were talking about those countries is because they had a bad economic situation. That's why they were favored
you're
in the
right,
first place.
simple, but he's denying he said it, but I want you to address that. But if he did, he has called our infrastructure totally crappy. That doesn't mean he hates America.
Here's the point I'm heading toward. He said probably something along those lines. The details are a little less important. But here's the thing. Whatever he did was bad, and I don't defend it. But it was also limited to the room. Whoever leaked it, and then whoever, the writer for the Washington Post who decided to magnify it, turned it from a small, bad, unfortunate comment that I wish he hadn't made in a room where it would have been contained.
Ooh, that's a good point.
into something that's a million
They're the
times
ones
worse.
that brought it out and put salt in the wound, that a private conversation. I get your point. Well, that's from Spinal Tap with the fictitious band playing the part of a 1970s, 1980s rock band with the hit song Hellhole. I would have called Haiti a hellhole. There's probably 20 or so hellholes, maybe 80 sh-t holes. The English Oxford Dictionary calls any country that has squalor and doesn't have a lot of electricity or running water or sewage a shit hole. So, whether the president said this or not, the English Oxford Living Dictionary would define Haiti as one of the worst sh-t holes in the world. But Trump, just like he said 2 weeks ago, he said, I didn't say all the Haitians have AIDS. That's preposterous. We've sent extra aid there. But see, they can't have it either way. He just kicked 200,000 Salvadorans out of the United States and forcing them back to gang violence, ravaged and impoverished disaster area. But I thought he was going to betray us on DACA. No, he was trying to make a real deal where you had to be vetted. So this is just the media telling conservatives he betrayed us on DACA, which he didn't do, then putting out another fake quote he didn't say by the fake media famous for that. Now we're going to go to Scott Adams, who's a linguist and expert in his own right, best-selling author, of course, creator of Dilbert and so much more at Scott Adams Says here in a moment. It's always great getting him on my broadcast, The War Room, Real News with David Knight. Just great to have him join us. And, of course, you can visit his website as well, Scott Adams, scottadams.com. I'm always just visiting him on Twitter. So we're going to talk to him in a moment about this and get his take. He was coming on about some other subjects we'll get into as well when we set him up a few days ago. But I wanted to play the former deputy director of the CIA, Phil Mudd, who said a few months ago, we're going to kill the president. The deep state will kill him. So we've come a long way. They at least admit it exists. To now saying all of us that were Irish and all of us that came here, because, the evil Protestants, we were all the SH holes. I'm like, no, those are Democrat party-run areas where they're closer to Haiti or whatever. I want to empower Haiti. I've sent aid to Haiti. I've been involved. I didn't swindle it like the Clintons did. So there's reality and then there's fiction. And so even though the president said this, which he said he didn't, Haiti is known as one of the biggest you-know-whats. People that come from there. People I know from India call places like Calcutta a SH you-know-what hole. They are. When there's open sewage, that's the definition. A hellhole's North Korea or a collapsing society like Venezuela. There's not many of those. But the Democrats would turn us into a hellhole like the south side of Chicago. Then right next to it's prosperity and no crime. It's culture, it's media, it's Democrat blue state areas. You look at a map of the U.S., everywhere there's blue is where you find the hellholes and the crap holes. So the Democrat really they are the crap hole party. I think the president should own this and say, well, I didn't really say it, but, you know, the dictionary says that Haiti is a SH-T hole. The Democrats have robbed it, made it a worse crap hole. So here's that clip, and we'll go to the creator of Dilbert.
You shocked or surprised by this?
I'm not surprised. In one way, I'm proud. I am a proud holder. My family was called wops and mackerel eaters. I'm proud of that. We came when people from Ireland and Italy were seen as dirty people, dirty Catholics who didn't belong in a Protestant country. Holders built this country 110 years ago.
Trump is a Catholic. Let's continue. It's all projected, but the creator Dilbert, he's really the expert on this language stuff. I'm just kind of a natural guy that just looks at it, but he's got the technicals in a moment. Let's continue with the guy that said we're going to kill the president. Here he is.
They were called slopers and slant eyes. Chinese.
Oh, wait, pause. Did you adopt a person from a starving orphanage in South Korea like my parents did? No. You are another elitist scumbag that's all talk on the KKK Democratic Party. Let's continue.
Built this country. Holders from Japanese internment camps.
Those Democrats put them in there again.
Those camps as American citizens, and that's a legacy that we bear shame
That's enough.
for.
That's right. You and the Democratic Party, but Eisenhower and the Republicans, and my grandfather in Texas politics, when nobody else in his area was a Republican, he got elected as a Republican, and they put the black kids in the schools, and they did it all, and then you turn around and tell me I'm a racist? No, you're part of the real crap hole party, the KKK, Mr. Mudd. Excuse me, I'm ranting here. Scott Adams, blog.dilbert.com. At Scott Adams on Twitter. Thank you for joining us for this segment and the next. You heard me ranting the last 4 or 5 minutes. What do you make of this SH storm that's going on?
Well, as usual, things are not necessarily in context. So one of the contexts that you see left out quite often is that when he said, why can't we get more people from Norway? Sometimes they mention it, but usually they don't. That he had just got done meeting with the Prime Minister of Norway, and he had been talking about Norway, probably for an hour and a half that day. And so when he was trying to come up with the name of a country that was prosperous, he said Norway. So if you leave that context out, it changes it a lot. The other context you probably need to put on this is that the damage that the president created, and by the way, I count his use of the word shithole in a way that could be, got out to the public, was clearly just a mistake. And as mistakes go, it was sort of a 10 out of 10. It's about as high as you can get on the offensive mistake level. So I don't defend it in any way. But if you put it in context, what he said was in a room with no cameras and no recording. So it was a bad thing to say, but in the context of the room, everybody in the room understood it to be his usual colorful language, talking about the economic situation of those countries, because the whole reason they were talking about those countries is because they had a bad economic situation. That's why they were favored
you're
in the
right,
first place.
simple, but he's denying he said it, but I want you to address that. But if he did, he has called our infrastructure totally crappy. That doesn't mean he hates America.
Well, here's the point I'm heading toward. He said probably something along those lines. The details are a little less important. But here's the thing. Whatever he did was bad, and I don't defend it. But it was also limited to the room. Whoever leaked it, and then whoever, the writer for the Washington Post who decided to magnify it, turned it from a small, bad, unfortunate comment that I wish he hadn't made in a room where it would have been contained.
Ooh, that's a good point.
into something that's a million.
They're the ones that brought it out and put salt in the wound. That a private conversation. I get your point.
Yeah. So if you're gonna, there's nothing that excuses what the president said because he put himself at risk for being quoted. There's no excuse for that, and it is offensive. But if you were to compare that, I like to use this analogy. If somebody is guilty of manslaughter, you can't defend it. It's a 10 out of 10. It's as bad as you can get. But if you were to compare that to, say, a genocide, everybody would agree that the genocide
that the Clintons admit they were involved in Rwanda.
Yeah, well, a genocide is bigger than a manslaughter of one person. So the president is certainly guilty of creating a situation where this could get out. But whoever the leaker was, has committed a far, far more serious crime against the country. Not crime exactly, but offense. It took a small offense that could have been contained and turned it into a gigantic issue that's it's a bloody nose for the country. It's bad for the way we deal with our allies. It's bad on every level. And I think you have to hold maybe not the Washington Post responsible, because they do reporting for a living, but leaking isn't anybody's job. Nobody took a job to be a leaker. So whoever did that has to share, I would say, 95% of the damage. I think they have to own that. But the president doesn't get off at all. I give him, I would say that this is a bad move on his part, period.
Well, he says he didn't say it, but he did say I use some harsh language. He should just come out and say that Clinton stole $2 billion out of Haiti, even the Huffington Post admits that, and that this is a complete joke and more fake news. I mean, listen, I could say maybe he used colorful language like that, but what about all the other fake news they've been caught putting out against him over and over again?
Well, let's look at context again, because if you change the context, you can create fake news where there is none. And one of the questions that I've asked the press to see if they can wrestle with today is the question of, if the president got his preference of a merit-based immigration system, given that most of the world is not white, wouldn't that, by his design, create a system where mostly non-white people are immigrating simply because of the math of it?
The brain drain. Let's talk about that. Really Smart with Scott Adams of Dilbert. We'll be back. Let's talk about the brain drain straight ahead. Well, I've always liked Dilbert. And I've also read his new book, Win Bigly. And Scott Adams, of course, endorsed Hillary for his own safety, but he's been more of a, what do you call him, a libertarian, something, or a conservative or a liberal over the years. And he always gets me to think about different angles. And it doesn't mean I totally agree with him. I think Trump's being more like Putin. I don't mean on policies or being pro-Russia, but Putin would say this is a crap hole country. I mean, even Trump even really said it. I've just seen media lie so much, I don't know how we can even agree that Trump really said it. But then when the Oxford English Dictionary says a third world country without running water or without sewage is a SH-T hole, I just say own it then. That's why people like Trump. But I can see what you're saying in these countries then hurting our relations. Well, I think the Clintons robbing them hurts the relations. But I want to hear you flesh this out, and the point you were getting to as we went to break, Scott Adams. Please continue.
Well, the point was about context. And if we haven't compared the president's future plan of a merit-based system, I don't know if we can determine whether his merit-based system would be biased toward white people or not. But if you just do the math, I think 25% of the world is white, and they may be disproportionately in countries where they're less inclined to want to immigrate, because they may have good economies in their country. So I think you're comparing two proposed systems in which both of them get you far more brown people, but one is merit-based, where the people who come in are more immediately adding to the quality of life in this country, and some are not. It's a completely fair argument as to whether or not you should have a merit-based system, but I think it's false to say that one system brings in lots of brown and black people, to use the phrases that are being used in the news, and one doesn't. Because as far as I can see, both of them would do pretty much the same.
Well, pragmatically, Trump 2-3 years ago said over and over again, I'm not against all Mexicans. They're not all criminals. That's a lie. Well, a lot of criminals are coming in unvetted. And he gave examples. They take me out of context. And then the conservatives were all mad at him going, he's saying he's going to go for DACA if they vet the people. Well, that's a betrayal. No, he never said that. It's like conservatives go, super right-wing ones, oh, he hates gays because the media said he did. He's got rainbow flags at the convention. He's got people coming out, out of the closet up there, eloquently, like Peter Thiel. And then when he doesn't come out as anti-gay, they go, oh, my gosh, you betrayed us. You're not anti-gay. But it's the leftist media misrepresenting, and then it's just crazy.
Well, yes, and also keep in mind that we observe this president using hyperbole and exaggerating on every topic about everything. So everything he does, he says, is the best in the world, which I think is good technique, by the way. And he says that everything that he doesn't like is the worst thing in the world and some kind of a hole. So this is the way he talks about everything all the time. If you were in that meeting, you probably knew he was just talking about the economic circumstances of those countries. But as soon as it leaves that meeting, whoever leaked it turned it into something different by changing its context.
No, you're right. The leak is the issue. I mean, why do these people keep doing incendiary things, whether they're true, half-true, lies? Aren't they really the ones endangering the country? Because you can say, well, it's talk big. If we had the biggest industrial base, we had the future. If Trump says we're great, we believe it again. We look at the economy, look at everything. It's manifesting. It's not like Oprah's Secret where you just Shazam can make a palace out of the sky because you believe it. We have the infrastructure. If we go back to it, it looks like Trump's exuberance is working.
Yeah, and I would also go back to something that a famous blogger named Scott Alexander once wrote about. It's the phenomenon that if you hear something in the news that just sounds unbelievable, it is almost certain that it didn't happen. So, for example, when it's been widely reported that the president called the white supremacists in Charlottesville fine people, well, that seems so amazing that you say, oh my God, is that possible? And the answer is, he almost certainly was thinking about there must have been other people there. Maybe there was just some Trump supporters who like free speech or whatever. So it is unbelievable because it probably almost certainly didn't happen. Likewise, when he said that the immigrants coming from Mexico included, rapists and murderers, whatever his exact quote was, if you interpret that to think that he believes everyone coming over the border is a criminal, that's hard to believe. And the reason it's hard to believe is because there's no chance he was thinking that.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Dan.
Like he always does.
Where do you see this going? Because mainstream media keeps ratcheting up the rhetoric with Phil Mudd, saying we're going to kill the president a few months ago. And now he says, he's called us all of us assholes when we didn't. Personalizing it, where if I go out now, leftists attack me, throw coffee on me, they scream Nazi, they scream Russian agent. I mean, this is like a witch hunt at the levels of the Salem trials. And I am not a witch. And I'm basically have people chasing me down the street with pitchforks and torches screaming, witch, witch, witch. And it's insane. It's not even scary to me. It's insane.
Well, the witches are always the ones who say, I'm not a witch, Alex.
Exactly. So
watch out for that. But yeah, no, this is a dangerous situation. And I think you have to allocate the blame rationally. The president did something that made this new excitement possible. Totally his fault. Could have been avoided. It was a self-inflicted wound. But whoever leaked it turned it into a big effing problem. And that person needs to answer for that morally, ethically, practically, and politically. I think that not knowing who that was, whose judgment was so bad to think that this should be a story that the public should be digesting, it's almost mind-boggling that somebody could have made an ethical decision in that direction.
Plus, Trump showed if Democrats come to the table and are real with him, he'll make deals. He's not a dictator. He's got to make deals. He lets them in, and then every time they leak or they embellish, I mean, they've been caught lying, too, about stuff. So I don't agree with you that we know this was true. He said, I use strong language, but it's not that. I think he knows somebody might have recorded it. It was something else. It may have been close. I think you're partially right, but I just think he's, I don't know. Because I agree he engages in hyperbole, but when he gets nailed down, he starts getting accurate. Sorry, go ahead.
But Alex, I would agree with you that it's unlikely that we're hearing the quote exactly as it was said. And chances are, if we heard it again in context and the exact words following whatever else had been saying, at the moment, it probably would sound different. So I don't think he's necessarily wrong when he says that he didn't say that exactly. But I think it's fair to say he was making disparaging remarks about the quality of some countries. I don't think that's...
But if somebody says to me, like I've got Indian friends, and I've said, I've never been to India, where should I go? And I mean, they're like, oh, man, well, I tell you, I would not go to Calcutta or this or that. They are SH-T holes. And because people are crapping all over the street, there's dead bodies. I mean, I've had family that's gone over there. Some areas are totally beautiful and great. Some places have 10 million people in a city, and they are hellholes. They are not just crap holes. I mean, if the dictionary has the word for open sewage, a place is a crap hole.
Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but context again is rules everything. If you say about your own child, "Oh my God, my son's a dope," then people say, "Well, the context is you're the parent, you love your child, you're just speaking."
But they're doing something dopey.
Right, but if somebody else calls your kid a dope, well, these are fighting words, right? So the problem is not whether or not these countries are shitholes. I mean, that's an interesting question and maybe one that's useful to know.
We should have a map of the world, hell holes, crap holes.
But it really matters who's saying it and in what context. And
what again, are good countries called? Glory holes?
No comment.
Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Well, I think I was done with that point, that what was said in the meeting was bad, but whoever leaked it made it terrible. So context matters.
Do you think Trump's going to end up being one of the greatest presidents ever, or do you think just on this track, I mean, this is insane. Because the prosperity's coming in. I don't see how they remove him as long as the economy keeps surging.
Well, the history of this sort of thing, it happens every month or so, is that it plays big for 48 hours and then it goes away. Do you remember, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking about this book called Fire and Fury? Like our sense of time has completely changed because of this president.
Exactly. It's almost like he does so much of this as an idiot savant that it jumps from the one thing to the next. So, yeah.
The one thing you don't have to wonder is if there will be another outrage that will push this one off the page again. But it will always live in people's minds as part of the confirmation bias story that says he's a monster.
Wow. You're right. Fire and Fury is only a week and a half old. It seems like 4 years ago. I'd even forgotten about it until you just said it.
Yeah, literally. I'm booked to be on a show tomorrow that was booked earlier in the week, and it was going to be about Fire and Fury.
You were coming on here about it, but I just knew to move on.
Right, and I just said, well, maybe we should wait before we decide what I'm talking about, because it's going to matter what happened that morning. All
right, the creator of Dilbert, Scott Adams, at Scott Adams on Twitter. We're at Real Alex Jones, the new book, Win Bigly, InfoWarsStore.com, bunch of specials as well. Thank you so much. Great talking to you.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
InfoWars comes to mind.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
There's a lot of controversy around this network about Alex Jones.
Google is being accused of hiding negative stories about Hillary and her campaign by changing its algorithm to bury stories like the Clinton body count story. That's according to website InfoWars.
It sounds like it's confirmed there are at least 2 shooters with fully automatic weapons.
Dr. Martin Luther King has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
JFK was shot from the back and the front.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
They took the babies out of the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor.
I think this is a national security imperative. We have clear things that we do not understand how they work, operating in areas that we can't control. UFOs.
Is this global governance at last? Is it one world? The central bankers in charge?
Israel claims the attack was accidental, but some former U.S. naval officers say it was on purpose. They describe the day's action as part of a continuing cover-up.
Russian intelligence compiled a dossier on Mr. Trump during visits to Moscow.
Russian scum!
Denied everything. He called it all fake news.
And he accused CNN of being fake news.
This is a national emergency.
If they kill Trump or remove Trump, it will cause a massive civil war in this country.
This is a FEMA high-level alert.
We are at war with Russia.
Are you aware that Mr. Stone also stated publicly that he was in direct communication with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks?
The White House and the President are citing InfoWars.
They could shut us down. You're next.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance. It's Alex Jones.
With Alpha Power by InfoWars Life,
you can be in charge of your energy again. Alpha Power helps with a large amount of functions for your body to help bring you to the peak of your optimal health. Alpha Power has a 4.8 star rating on InfoWarsStore.com. Listen to all these incredible 5-star reviews from verified buyers. Papa Black Wilson says, whatever's in this is doing something good. I take it daily as I would any other daily vitamin, and it's got me in a state where even the normal day of a few hours sleep, rest easy, and wake up positive, regardless of the amount of sleep I get. And what Alex was hinting at when he first released this product, yeah, the missus surely enjoys it. Frank John says, this stuff is incredible. Wow, this is like taking brain force mixed with super male vitality at the same time. Alpha Power makes me feel well mentally, makes me want to exercise more, and helps me feel a little more confident. After about a week and a half or two, I started to really feel the huge raise in my male drive. That helps with focus too, like Brain Force Plus. I've tried about 15 InfoWars Life Health products, and they're always of supreme quality. LJ says, it's been 5 days since my boyfriend began taking Alpha Power. There's definitely been a change, for the better. Without getting too personal, our activity has increased, and that's fine by me. He also says he's got a bit more energy. I hope this lasts. One-Eyed Jack says, Alpha Power. I took Alpha Power for the first time this morning, and after about 15 minutes, I felt so awake and alert and full of energy. I take Super Male and Brain Force as well, but I have to say, this blows them both out of the water. Defeat the Globalists said, more energy at the end of the day. Taking 1 capsule a day in the AM, and even after being on the go all day, there's no crash at night. I'd feel exhausted after 8 p.m. Not anymore. Seem to be sleeping better too. I seem to have upped my water intake as well. I will definitely buy this again. Head to InfoWarsStore.com and experience Alpha Power today. That's InfoWarsStore.com.